folks, and welcome to Time to Talk with Tanja Wakelin. I've just spent the most wonderful hour with Tanja talking about her amazing Bug Off natural dog collars, which I absolutely love and which my dogs wear. This is them here for anybody who's watching rather than listening. I just love them. They're great, they look fantastic, and they do the job as well, which is even more important. So enjoy the chat with Tanja. It ranged far and wide from working on cruise ships and being a translator through to creating these amazing Bug Off natural dog collars. So grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea if it's late at night and enjoy listening to the chat. Take care, take it steady and stay safe. Bye guys. Hi folks, I'm here with Tanja Wakelin from the Natural Bug Off Collars company, and I first came across Tanja, I think it was the beginning of last year, in relation to her collars, which I absolutely love and look amazing on the dogs, very bohemian. Tanja, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you agreed to come on.
Hi Les, thank you for having me.
We had a little chat on Facebook on our Messenger the other day, and the information that Tanja gave me about what she's done was just amazing, and I was so excited yesterday at the thought of getting you on the podcast. So before we get into the collars and how they came about, can you just tell me your involvement with dogs? Because I know you've got a Munsterlander. So tell me about your life with dogs first before we do the comments.
It started when I was about 12, and my parents first of all had a German Shepherd pup.
Uh-huh.
But unfortunately they had to return that to the breeder because we lived in Amsterdam on the 3rd floor and my mum could not manage a German Shepherd puppy. No. So that broke all our hearts really, but it went to a good home afterwards. And then they decided they could manage a smaller dog, so they got a Yorkshire Terrier. And I remember at the time we absolutely adored this dog, but he was so badly behaved and he got away with murder. And he used to bark at everything and everybody. So I remember thinking as a teenager that if I always wanted dogs, that if I ever got a dog, I would train it properly. I've done okay with mine, but they could still be better. So anyway, I went to work on ships when I was 23. And that's where I met my husband, Jonathan.
What did you do on the ships? I can't let that one go past. What did you do on the ships?
Well, because I speak a few languages, I was hired in the gift shop to sell things like jewelry, cosmetics, clothing, etc. And did that for, I'm trying to think now, most of 84 and all of 85, so nearly 2 years. And it's a nice life. But it's not a real life, so we came off, and it was much easier to settle in the UK because my husband spoke no Dutch and I spoke English, so we settled down in Wales. I couldn't have a dog at the time because I was looking for jobs and I was working many different jobs. I sold cosmetics for Clinique and I've sold retirement flats. I was a customer service supervisor for a while for a company called NK Interface selling stationery that they printed. I did freelance translating on the side for an agency from Mid Wales. And then basically, because I was working from home, I could finally have a dog. I had cats up until then. I'm not really a cat person. I do quite like them, but I'm more a dog person. They seem to return love a lot more than most cats that I've had.
Yeah, no, I get that. I used to have a Maine Coon. We couldn't have dogs. I was working full time in IT, so it was my husband was working full time in IT, really long hours, and we got Maine Coon.
Lovely.
It's kind of a stopgap between getting a dog. But yeah, can I ask you about the translating before we move on to other stuff? Because I want to keep, there's some stuff in there. I've got to ask you about that. How did you find translating? Because I don't speak any languages, unless include English and Geordie.
Well, I did mainly Dutch, English, English, Dutch. Some German and French on the side, but it was very little. And what I found was that because I spoke so much English and very little Dutch, that I actually preferred to translate from Dutch into English than the other way around, because I was constantly looking for words. And in those days, you didn't have Google Translate. And I was working with mountains of dictionaries, and but it was really good fun. And my favorite stuff I used to translate was for the Welsh tourist board. I used to love doing that. But it sort of eventually petered out a bit because I think maybe it wasn't needed as much. More and more Dutch people speaking English anyway.
Do you speak Welsh?
No, I tried to learn. But with everything else that was going on at the time, I just couldn't find the time. So I understand some of it. And I do like to watch certain Welsh programs, but I do watch it with the subtitles.
English subtitles. Because you've got a bit of a Welsh accent. The more you talk, the more I can hear the twang.
Yes, I have picked it up. But then I have been in Wales since December 85. So I had better pick it up, I think.
Okay, so because I moved down to Worthing in 86, I left Tyneside in 86, and then I've lived in Oz and New Zealand, and I didn't pick the accents up. At least I don't think I picked the accents up.
It doesn't sound like it to me, but who knows?
It's interesting. So can I ask, because I find being a writer, I find language just amazing, and I have had somebody offer to translate my books into German, but when you're reading something or translating and it's not in your native language, how do you do it? Because as I say, I don't do languages. So would you read the book in English and translate the words in Dutch or any other language in your head? Or
not with English anymore. I would probably say I now dream in English. Do you know when you do a count, say you're counting some coins in your head, I wouldn't do that in Dutch anymore. For years I've been doing that in English. My husband always teases me because when I do visit my mum, who still lives in the Netherlands, I have to find loads of words back into Dutch. And when I've spent, say, 5-6 days with her, my Dutch is much better, but my husband says your English has deteriorated, and he's an English teacher, so he knows.
Oh my goodness, he teaches English. You
use your mouth very differently for the two languages, so that takes a bit of a switch in the brain.
Right, one of my friends, well, she's a really good old friend of mine, and she taught me Touch for Health, and she lived in France for a while, and she did this most amazing French accent. So she would speak in English, but she would put this like really, really heavy French, ripping French accent on it. And she'd always pretend she was holding one of these. Is it a cheroot? The really long brown cigarette?
Oh, the churros, yes.
Churros. So she would imagine she was holding, and her whole mouth, her whole face, facial structure completely changed.
Yes.
Almost not dour, but almost
Gallic?
Very, but also very drawn and down, like that almost, I mean, I can't do accents. I struggle taking the mickey out of my husband who's Scottish. I shouldn't say that living in Scotland now, but trying to do a Scottish accent is beyond me even. But everything about her face changed. So do you do that when you're speaking a different language? Do you take on the facial mannerisms of
I think country? So. I mean, I always crack my husband up because when his French is quite good as well, actually. But when we're speaking, and at the end of the sentences, the French will quite often say "un," like that, and I tend to use my shoulders doing that, and it cracks him up no end.
The Gallic shrug, huh? Or the it's like the kids know everything's like at the end, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
the Welsh are very much like that. Yes, we often. I consider myself more Welsh these days, but we often say things like, "Oh, that tasted really good," and that is a very Welsh type of expression.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what they say in Scotland. I mean, the Ken is a lot. You can.
Yes.
And that.
I love all the different accents and languages in general fascinate me.
It's amazing, isn't it? And when we lived when I first moved down to Worthing, I could pinpoint where people lived within 6 miles, because
Really?
yeah, because the Lancing accent is really different to the Littlehampton accent, which is really different to the Worthing accent, to the Brighton accent, but the people who lived there couldn't really hear it because they were surrounded by butchering outsider.
Yes.
The people in Lancing almost had like a Cockney twang to it, and so it was just really interesting.
Living in South Wales, though, I'm not really surrounded by what I would say strong Welsh speakers. There are Welsh speakers around here, but in South Wales, it's a little bit more like, I'm so close to Bristol anyway, about 20 minutes. A lot of Bristolians and English people live this side of the bridge because it's cheaper.
Yeah, and the commute to London as well, don't they, from Bristol? There's a lot of, that real M4 corridor, because we used to live in Marlborough. And so I know the M4 corridor really well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I know, not so much me, but hubby. But so what happened when you stopped being a translator?
Well, like I said, the translation work sort of dried up a little bit. I was spending more and more time with my dogs out of choice. Oh yes, I forgot to tell you, of course, how I acquired my first dog.
Yes, sorry.
That was, I'm trying to think very quickly now. I think it was about 1999. And my husband was working in Spain during the week and at home on weekends. And I must say, I really needed the company of it. And we took on a yellow Labrador pup from Showline. And unfortunately, he was very badly bred with bad joints. And his first year was marred very much by operations on his hock and elbows, etc. But he lived a long and happy life until he was 12 and a half. And I acquired a chocolate Labrador, again from Showlines, much better bred. I'm still very much friendly with her breeder. And with her, she would do anything for food. She wasn't motivated by anything else but food, typical Labrador. And I did lots of different things and started joining the Rockwood dog display team in Caerphilly.
I saw that was something, and I did have a little look on it this morning to see what they were doing. So what did you do in the Rockwood display team?
Well, when I first joined, you sort of only do the basics. So we did the basic obedience routine, and like I said, she would do the obedience just for the food. We did an agility run. You'll have to look at some of the videos on the website. They're really good. And I realized then I retired her at around the age of 9 because a pedigree Labrador from Showlines is not as agile. So it was time for her to take a step back. I'd taken on a rescue collie, and she performed for a few seasons. Yeah, she was hard work, mind. She needed a lot of training. Of course, she was already a year old when I got her, which does make life slightly more difficult, retraining when it's not a puppy. She performed for a couple of seasons, and I knew I was ready for a maybe slightly more challenging breed. And I read about...
Sorry, a more challenging than a collie?
Yeah, but she wasn't a typical mad collie. She needed to learn manners and stuff, but she didn't have that drive that a lot of collies have got with agility. And I never took my agility very seriously. I just dabbled at it, as I told you. And I read about the Manchesterlander breed in one of the magazines, and I did a whole year of research into the breed because I thought, I hope I'm not taking on more than I can handle, knowing now I was working from home, so I had the time, and acquired my first Manchesterlander Maya in, trying to think now, she was born in May, so about July 2008.
Okay, so a little while ago. So was it, which type was it? The large? Your first one was a large?
Yes, you'd be very hard pushed now to find the small Manchesterlander in this country. I don't think there are any actual breeders, but and the group of breeders, the large Manchesterlander community is not huge either, but they're easier to come by. And you have to expect to get grilled about what you want to do with your dog, because it needs being kept busy. It's well, they sort of describe them as the energy of the Springer with the intelligence of the Collie. So they're always a step in front of you. You really have to make sure you know what you're doing, because they can be hard work.
And they're really independent it's a really independent breed. It's like, as soon as you take that leap, it's like, okay, fine, I know what I'm doing, leave me to it.
You know, they're an HPR and they often think for themselves. Many a time have I, and Maya is still with me at 12, many a time have I sent her to go and get a dummy, say, to the left, and she will look at me with this look as if to say, you do not know what you're doing. And she'll go to the right and I'll stop her on the whistle. And I send her back to the left and she refuses, and eventually she does her own thing and she finds a dummy, because I'd forgotten that the one on the left had already been collected by the previous dog.
Oh, how funny. They're really, I mean, I really like them. I've trained a couple, but the favourite one I trained was called Jasper, and I can't remember. Tanjas.
Oh, Tanzenbach, yes.
Carol's dogs.
I know of the kennels.
Yeah, so it was Jasper, and he was constantly winning crofts and being placed, and he was an amazing dog. And Carol,
his name does ring a bell, actually. What year was that, Les?
When I trained him,
yeah,
that would have been 2008, 2009.
So I was just getting into the breed and finding my feet. Yes.
So he was in the pet gun dog. He's one of the dogs. Let me see. I've got a great photo of him. So that's him there.
Oh wow! Does it say underneath the photo? Was he a Tanzenbach Waterman or something? A water dog? He had like another part to his name.
I really can't remember. No, I can't. I mean, he was a stunning dog. Sorry, I'm showing photos at the minute. He was a stunning looking dog, and he was really independent. And from, if memory serves me, he went and then come back to Carol, because the person who had him struggled with him. What an amazing dog! And his children, the puppies, Syad, also went on to do really, really well at crofts. Very versatile. So they were working dogs, not just show dogs.
Yeah, this is what I like about the breed, by the way, is that there is no distinction between the one that is shown and the one that is worked. It really, our sort of key expression is today in the show ring, tomorrow in the field, and I do like that about them.
That's really good, because the lines have really changed, haven't they, over the years, in relation to, I mean, most of, I would say a lot of the British gun dogs, you've got a very different stamp to them. So, you know, the working cocker is very different to the English cocker or the cocker spaniel. Yes. Even though on the pedigrees, they're both called a cocker spaniel, the look different, the temperaments are different, everything about them is kind of a different breed, but they're still cocker spaniels. And the working labs as well.
Yes.
Everything is just streamlined and slimmer and a lot more agile and faster, mentally faster.
More fit for purpose, I would say.
Definitely more fit for purpose. And do you think the breed lines are changing? Do you think that they're starting to merge, or do you think they're separating even more?
In what breed, Les?
Just generally, the working to show.
Oh, I think they're separating more. If you put a working lab next to a show lab, they don't really look the same breed anymore, do they? The heads there. I actually, this is only personal preference, I quite like the head on the show lines, but I like the body and the sort of agility of the working lines.
Yeah, I think some of the working labs are starting to look a bit snivy.
Ah, yes, I've noticed that too.
A bit snivy, a bit pointy, whereas certainly my labs have still got strong heads. I only have boys, and they've got strong heads. I can remember when I took Bart with me to New Zealand. So I shipped my dog and my cat, which was a bad idea taking the cat, but I took Bart and Charlie with me to New Zealand, and when I was entering Bart into competitions, I said, no, he's a Labrador cross. No, he's a working lab. No, because they hadn't seen working
Right.
out there. They'd only seen the show style or the show working. They'd never seen like he's a Drake's Head Tibia cross, or all in his lines. And so he was very tall, very slim, but with a strong head.
No.
And they thought he was a cross because they'd not seen a tall, slim Labrador before.
Well, I'm sure it doesn't compare to all the sort of things I get asked about my Manchesterlanders, whether they are long-haired Dalmatians or...
Oh, really?
I mean, I quite often laughingly say that, oh, they're like Spaniels on steroids. They've just grown a bit too much, that sort of thing, you know. But yeah, it's a very specialized breed, but it's so addictive. I've got 3, and I'm considering... Yes, and I'm considering a possible 4th, you know, so 4 is my lucky number. We'll see.
You've got your shopping list, you're doing your research while we're in lockdown, ready to just get out there with your purse.
Oh, no, I've been on this list since last autumn, winter. So, yes, we'll see. We'll see.
Fantastic.
And any moment, I'm waiting to find out whether she's actually pregnant or not. So, we'll see.
What are the minutes that she's been covered? Awesome.
She was covered just before, it was 10th of March, so we'll see.
Oh, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you.
Yeah.
I mean, they do look a bit like, you know, springers on steroids. I saw in Marlborough there was a lad who had a small Munsterlander and used to go running with it. And the first time I saw it, I did a double take.
Yeah.
You know.
They're nice. I like the small Manchesterlander. I belong to some of the Facebook groups because it's the sort of breed I think, now if I get a little bit too old to actually, because they have very strong dogs, the large Manchesterlander, could I manage a small Manchesterlander? So it's sort of in the back of my mind, but they're not easy to come by.
They're not. And also I was talking to Nick Ridley the other day and we were talking about how when we get older, we should really downsize the energy of our dogs but upsize the size of them so that when these on we're not constantly bending over and listening to little dogs. So yeah, we can get a giant Munsterlander.
I hope not, as it is some of the males in the show ring are getting bigger.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's personal choice. My 8-year-old Brennan, he is quite compact. So he's lovely and square, as they should be, but he's quite compact. So he only weighs about 27 kilos. Whereas some of the Munster males in the ring can be 43 to 45 kilos.
That is big.
And they're not fat, they're just big. So
solid dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Jasper was huge. I mean, he was tall and lean, but there was a lot of dog there. A lot of dog. Can't remember how heavy he was. It was a long time ago. But he was a lot of dog. He was lovely. So you know, he'd run like this and he'd be like flouncing, going everywhere.
Bless.
He put my Goldie to shame. So oh my goodness. So what took you from the path of translating and getting a dog, you know, from a Yorkshire Terrier through Collie through Munsterlander?
Don't forget my 2 Labradors in between.
Oh my goodness, I forgot your 2 labs in the middle.
They were our first dogs together as a married couple, yes. They had a huge impact on us. And we lost them in 2011, within 3 months of each other. They weren't young to die. Quincy, our yellow lab, was 12 and a half. So, you know, he'd done okay. And Basha, our chocolate lab, was 11 and a half, but had been fighting mast cell tumors for quite some time.
Okay.
And that was really, for me, the trigger when we were not trying to cure her, but to treat her as good as possible during her cancer. Yeah. I did a lot of research into food to start with. Okay. And I learned things like how high carb foods, like and everybody to their own. I'm not going to preach about raw feeding, but that high carb foods can feed certain cancers, etc. So I was feeding them dried food, and I found a dried food which was based upon, I think it was duck and vegetable, and it was a small company, and she did okay on that. When we lost the Labradors, we went from 4 dogs to 2. I had the 1 Manchesterlander girl and our rescue collie, and I kept feeding them this food. And a friend who at the time was a Manchesterlander puppy coordinator for the club, she contacted me and she said, have you considered getting another Manchesterlander? And we were grieving quite badly. We were quite shell-shocked.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I don't know, Wendy, it's not time yet. Anyway, she said, well, I'm just letting you know that a friend of mine, and imagine now, I live near Newport in Gwent. She's in Grantham in Lincolnshire.
Okay.
This breeder. And she said, she's using your bitch's dad, so that's Maya's father, for one last time.
Oh.
So, and I liked Maya a lot. And anyway, long story short, I acquired 6 months after the death of our labs, I acquired Maya's half-brother and went to Grantham to pick him up. And the first 3 months I had him, I was pulling my hair out because he was such hard work compared to his half-brother.
Really?
But to be fair, he settled down, and I often call him my little canine soulmate because he's so tuned into me. It's fantastic. And I shan't bore you with how one, I mean, I have no favorites, but he's just the one that constantly, without being clingy, he's not Velcro-like, always looks in my eyes as if to say, you okay, Mum? And he knows when I'm upset or when I'm happy. He's a noisy sod at times. I've tried working. I mean, my bitch was so good. She lacked a bit of confidence, but he doesn't. I've tried working him at a few working tests, and I'm afraid I failed him a little bit. He screams the place down at times in excitement. They are a very noisy breed. I got to tell you that.
Right.
There are some lines that do better than others, and I've got a very good friend in North Wales. You may have come across her name, called Karen Sena. And she has Echolander, and her bitches do absolutely fantastic. And she's made a couple of them into field trial champions.
That is awesome.
And to do that with a Manchesterlander, let me tell you that takes some effort. I can't even imagine to go down that path with mine, I'm afraid.
Patience of a saint.
So anyway, coming back to the natural means, Brennan, my large Manchesterlander, at about 3 to 4 months old, I noticed he had what I would think was a grass pollen allergy.
Right.
And he had, he's quite light, and I think possibly the lighter dogs suffer a bit more. And he had like a sort of acne in his groins, etc. So I started researching how to get rid of that, preferably not by the means that the vet that I was visiting at least once a month, who would give either steroids or antibiotics, because of course it would turn into a bacterial infection. Nothing major. He wasn't ill or anything. It was just, I knew he was itchy. So a friend of mine was raw feeding, and she said, why don't you try it? What have you got to lose? So I tried just him to start with, and I wouldn't say it cured him, but my word did it improve him.
Yeah. So
that was my first step on the road to natural means. It wasn't long after that I put them all over to raw feeding and bought a 300-litre chest freezer.
I know.
In the garage. And then I started looking at vaccinating and boosting, etc. And I will say, in those days, I wasn't at the vet very often, but there was always something little going on. They either had a little bit of conjunctivitis, or they had this or that, or an upset tummy. And I joined Canine Health Concern, and
Catherine O'Driscoll.
Yes.
Yeah, she's amazing, isn't she?
And I looked into titer testing. So I decided not to titer test Maya, because by that time she was already about 7. And I thought, she's been boosted every year, enough is enough. Even if her titer test said that she needed anything, I thought that was enough. So, but I had both boys titered, and they came back really, really good, really high. And I don't think they've been boosted since. And every 3 years or so, I have them titered, and their readings remain high. So the next natural step seemed to be...
Can I jump in before you go on to the next natural
Sure.
step? Can you just say what titer testing is for everybody who might not, anybody who
Right.
might not
Well,
know
there are different means out there, but because I joined Canine Health Concern, I joined the Somerset group, and in Cleeve Village Hall from time to time they hold a clinic. This is where I met Nick Thompson for the first time. He's just... And basically you have to be on the list because the demand is high. And they are able to keep the cost down, because if you went to your vet and asked for a titer test, and they were willing to do it, because not all vets are, because they think it's possibly cheaper and easier to do the booster vaccination. And I shan't go into why I don't agree with that. That's for everybody else to research and decide.
Thank you.
They kept the cost down. I think it's about £35–40 per dog.
Really?
I know. Whereas the vet may charge you £100 or £200.
Yeah.
Because they can't buy in less than, I think it's 12 tests. And the one that Canine Health Concern used was VaxiCheck.
Right.
And basically they take a bit of blood from your dog, and within about a week to 10 days you get an email, and they list the titer values for the 3 main core diseases, which are hepatitis, distemper and parvo. They can't test for lepto, but that's a whole different subject, maybe for another time, because I do not like the leptospirosis vaccine at all.
Which one, the 2 or the 4?
Either. But definitely more than anything, I dislike the 4.
Oh, it's horrific, isn't it?
Oh, the things I've read about that. But again, everybody needs to do their own research. I don't like preaching to people. I say, listen, if you want to have advice, I'll tell you what I know. I'm not a vet. I'm not an expert. Do your research and then make an informed decision. So, so that is what titer testing is, basically. It tells you whether the dog still carries immunity to certain core diseases.
Thank you. And before you go on, because I'm finding this so interesting, before you go on, the Canine Health Concern, I get the newsletter and stuff, but I didn't realise there was different groups dotted around.
They have like subgroups. So
on Facebook, or do you have to contact Catherine to join it? Or
no, I don't know how I came about it, but I remember that I went to a lecture that was held by Nick Thompson in, I think it was Tinton Village Hall, which is not that far for me to go to. I befriended one of the ladies who runs the Somerset group, and that's how I got into it. When as the crow flies, I'm very close to Somerset, but I still have to go over the bridge to get there. But no, they're all lovely, lovely people with all similar feelings about a more natural approach. I got to say at this point, however, and this is really important, I don't dislike vets. I've got a really good veterinary practice. They do think I'm a little bit hippie. My approaches, and I wouldn't hesitate to contact them if it was necessary, be it an accident or a severe illness, etc. But I will always try and look to see if minor stuff can be cured with natural, non-invasive means, if you know what I mean.
Thank you. And on that point, it is really important, because I used to do kinesiology on dogs. I used to work with dogs and horses and do kinesiology with them. We have to be really mindful of the 1962 Veterinary Exemptions Act, and only vets can treat animals, and you have to work under the supervision of your vet. So if it's your own animal, then have a really good conversation with your vet, and as you say, develop the relationship with them. And I think, I'm lucky my vet is also an acupuncturist and a physiotherapist, which is fantastic.
Yes.
So I talk to Miriam, who I'm hoping to get on the podcast at some point. So I've got a really good relationship with Miriam, and also she works out of a conventional veterinary practice as well. So I've got that relationship there. But it is, I think it's great. I used to do natural horsemanship as well, and I think it's fantastic trying to treat the animals in the way that their energy system dictates, which is as natural as possible.
Yeah.
But just like us, sometimes we need medical intervention.
Of course. I I will always, for myself, look at a natural means first, and if that doesn't work, then I may go and see a doctor. But in general, yes, I'm a great believer of homeopathy and similar supplementary medicine. I like the word supplementary. I'm not trying to replace anything. I'm just trying to add to what I can do for my dogs in this case, or myself.
Yeah, so you're complementing rather than doing alternatives. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So basically, when I had gone away from boosting and titer testing, I then looked at, I went, like I said, to one of the lectures that Nick held. And the one thing he said always stuck in my mind with regards to things like worming, etc. And he said, I'm pretty sure, I hope I'm not misquoting him, the way we worm, etc., our dogs chemically, is like you getting up in the morning, taking a stiff dose of aspirin just in case you might get a headache in the afternoon.
Yes.
And I really liked that metaphor. And I thought, yes, what I'm doing is my dogs don't have worms, and yet I'm giving them worming medication, for instance, when they don't need it at that point, just in case they, and of course you had to do it monthly or whatever. So I then looked into all sorts of natural worming stuff. I give things like diatomaceous earth and ground pumpkin seeds, and they get a little bit of apple cider vinegar, a tiny bit of garlic, nothing too much, because I know in large quantities garlic is not advised. I stopped doing the chemical spot on. I was very much into applying stuff like Advocate, etc. on the neck, and I didn't like it because you could see all the warnings and the dogs hated it. And so I investigated further. I thought, I'm now 75% of the way to going natural. This has got to be the way to go. And I know that the garlic and the apple cider vinegar, I started using Billy No Mates.
Yes, CSJ?
Yes, really good stuff. But I was still getting some tick problems. It's not too bad where I am here, but as you know, we travel the country with the display team, and especially in areas like the New Forest, etc., they were picking them quite badly. Dreadful. And I have Munster friends, because it's such a close community all over the world. I belong to the American group and obviously the Dutch group. And one of my Dutch Munster friends, on her own timeline, posted these very hippie looking collars. And I thought, that's nice. And the nosy person that I am, I said on her thread, Anita, what are these collars? And she said, well, and I'm a bit like that as well, actually. She said, I can't really explain to you how they work, but they are tick repellent. And she provided me via private messaging with some links. That there isn't a whole load of research into it, unfortunately. You have to really look for it. And I looked at the links and I thought, okay, I quite like the idea of this. It'll go nicely, fit nicely into my arsenal of Billy No Mates, etc. And I went on Amazon and I had a look and I thought, it's £30. I had 4 dogs at the time, and I thought £120 for something that I can't really say yet whether it'll work or not. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed.
No.
And I thought, I wonder what they're using. So I have to tell you, I looked at the photos of my friend's supplier in the Netherlands, and I probably could have ordered them from there. But I do like making my own things. I'm a bit of a tinkerer, and I enlarged the photos to see how she'd made them and etc. And the hardest part was getting hold of the bead, because they are specialized beads. I started off by ordering them via Amazon, and it cost an arm and a leg because I only wanted a small amount to make my own collars for my own dogs. Yeah. And I think I paid more for the postage than I did for the beads in the end. Anyway, I ordered some paracord, and I made the very basic black collars for my own dogs. And I started noticing that it really did work. No 100% guarantee. They still picked up the odd tick. But I also noticed a change in the behavior of the tick. So rather than finding these huge engorged ticks they often fell off on the ground without having fed.
Okay, yeah.
Which was, it's in line with what these EM beads do. So obviously then it started from there. I had friends asking, what's that around their neck, Tanja? And I said, well, it's this, and I'm having a go. And they all, in the beginning, I was making them all free of charge for friends, etc. And then I started getting inquiry from Munster friends from Scotland, and this is how it started. And I don't know how many collars I've made, but I would say I've made thousands.
Wow.
1,000. And I would say 99% of my customers are really pleased with them.
Yeah, I mean, I love mine, absolutely love them. I've taken Tanjas off, so I can hold it up and show everybody. So
I'll show you the latest one I made for my
same one, isn't it, or slightly different? So mine is blue camel with just for the people who are listening to this.
Well, this is called Gobstopper. It's one of the new colors, so that's the nice thing for me. When a new color comes out, I can do it on my own dogs first and see what it looks like.
How it looks. Get of it. So just in case anybody's listening rather than watching, it's a paracord collar which is braided and plaited and embedded within the plait, or what are these called? EM beads?
EM beads. It stands for effective microorganisms.
Okay, and it looks very bohemian, and certainly on my spaniel, who's very hairy and has got a really curly top knot, he just looks very very artistic, doesn't he? He's very
some of my customers call them hippie collars. I don't mind that.
Yeah, okay, so he's got a hippie collar, his bowhole collar. So tell me about these beads, because I know you said you know it's quite technical, and then you said you've got some information. So would you mind just sharing it, Tanja? Because I think these are fantastic and I recommend them all the time.
Right. Well, I know you have, and I'm really grateful for that. Okay, I'm not very good with the science, so basically, are you happy for me to read something out?
Yes, please do.
Because then, like I said, I can't misquote things. So it says basically that it stands for effective microorganisms. Mm-hmm. And it refers to a family of bio-based products using a technology developed by a Japanese scientist. Now, this goes back a long time. If I'm not mistaken, it goes back possibly as far as the 1970s.
Right.
And it was a liquid bacterial product that he was devising. And from what I remember is that he stopped his research and chucked this bacterial liquid on a patch like what do you call that, where he was growing some veg, like a little allotment.
Yeah.
He came back from a holiday, I believe, and noticed that this one patch was growing better than any of the others.
Nice.
So what it's saying is that beneficial bacteria are baked into these pipes at a very high temperature. Now, I've had some people with scientific degrees trying to tell me that those bacteria would not survive under high temperatures. Mm-hmm. It's not about the bacteria being live. For a start, the baking happens under what they call an anaerobic process. So oxygen is removed from the baking process. It's more to do, you know how homeopathy works, pardon me, with
vibrational level. Yeah.
Yes, and it's almost like the memory of the remedy remains in the homeopathic remedy, even though it's been diluted so many times. It's similar to the EM beads. The imprint remains in the beads without there actually being live bacteria at that point in the beads. Okay. But you've got to treat the color as if it is live. So, for instance, a lot of people say to me, "Can I use this together with chemical spot-ons?" No, you definitely cannot.
No.
I have no anecdotal evidence to say it kills the colors, but you are basically defeating the object if you do that.
Yes.
Initially, I thought the beads would last several years. I saw a Canadian website that advise people to change the bead every year. And I noticed on my own collars, because I've only been doing this 2 years, that after about 12 to 14 months, they were less effective. So I did go back to my customers and said, listen, I know I said to you, I was hoping that this would last several years, but you just assess for yourself. Keep them really clean. It's important to keep these beads really clean every couple of weeks minimum. But if you see that they're not as effective anymore, you will have to replace them. They've done their job and they're finished. And I found that really hard, because at the time I thought I wasn't counting or wishing for repeat customers. I thought, you've got a collar now, get on with it. But it turned out that they do need replacing.
Yeah, but if, that's what happens, isn't it? I mean, you have to regularly top things up, and that's okay. So how do I clean my collar? How do I clean?
So don't do what some of my lovely customers have done, either on purpose or by mistake, and chuck them in the washing machine.
I know somebody who's just done that.
Yes, I think it may be a mutual friend of ours. One gentleman who actually put them in the dishwasher.
Oh, man.
It's not the heat that hurts them, it's the chemicals.
Yeah.
So what I do every couple of weeks, or more often if they've been rolling, which is one of their favorite pastimes, I run a fairly warm tap, and I rub the beads and the cords under the warm water. Now, sometimes, especially with my youngest, who is a real mud magnet, I use a nail brush, especially on the beads, right? And that won't harm them at all. They're quite hard. Just brush the beads. And if you have sun, as we have at the moment, a bit more difficult in the winter, dry them in the sun. It, according to the instructions, it recharges the beads.
Revitalizes them.
Yeah. And the cleaner you keep them, the better they work. Because otherwise the beads get obviously coated in the oils that naturally come off dog skin as well.
I'm just looking at mine and seeing how clean they are. They're pretty clean.
Yes, that looks pretty good from here.
I do use a toothbrush not my toothbrush, but I use an old toothbrush.
That's not bad, actually. I'm finding the nail brush a bit easier, because I can scrub the cord as well. And the good thing is that, to be fair to the paracord, it is very hard wearing.
It's I mean, I absolutely love mine, and I have seen a massive difference. So when we first moved up to Scotland, I don't use spot on or anything. I haven't used it. Craigie Bott died in 2010, and the last time I used it was on him, so it would have been before then. I put it on, it scalded him. I put it on his shoulders and it scalded him. He had a burn.
Oh, my word.
Rinsed him off, and I haven't used spot on since. That would have been 2008, 2009, something like that. And I've been using Billy No Mates, but my current dog's on keen on it, so I use bracelets. And it wasn't quite enough to keep them tick-free. You put in bracelets in. When I found your collars, I mean, last year, between the two dogs running in the woods through in a wooded copse through the ferns, and the grasses and the long grass and the white grass, especially the spaniel, probably the whole of last year ended up with half a dozen ticks between the two dogs, which is amazing.
That's very good, actually.
Really good.
Yeah.
So I don't mind having even half a dozen ticks each over the summer. And
well, before I put these on our dogs, some Munsters are quite precious and don't like going into undergrowth and shrubbery. And my girls like that. The boys are nuts, and they will dive into the middle of shrubs just to flash a pheasant or whatever. And especially the young one, before I had these collars, he would come out, and I hadn't checked him over straight away, bring him back to the caravan while we were on holiday in the New Forest. And I freaked out, because I must have found 20 ticks on him. And they were deer ticks, because they're even more difficult to take off, because they're smaller than the normal tick, the little red ones, When I started using the collars, I did not eliminate the problem, but like you said, I didn't half minimize the problem. I'd find the odd tick maybe every other day, which, considering what my dogs were up to, was good going.
Yeah, and what I hadn't realised with ticks. You know, I've always had really good relationships with my vets, and my vet at Marlborough, Juliet Haywood from Riverside, she used to own Riverside. We've talked, she's a gun dog girl as well, and we talk a lot about ticks, and she thinks I'm a bit of a wacky hippie as well, and that's okay. But what I hadn't realised is the ticks, as soon they'll be on like grasses and stuff, and as soon as they feel movement, the spring, they launch themselves off the grass, and land on the dog or you. And it was fascinating, and the temperature's got to rise at a certain point, and then they wake up and just start springing off everything as soon as.
I think they also detect carbon monoxide from the dog's breath, etc.
Do they? That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really.
They are gross.
They make me cringe, and they make me freak out. I've had one of my friends had Lyme's disease of a deer tick, and another friend had a shower. She had her dog in the bed with her, which I'm not going to go there. She went in the shower and she felt something, and it was a tick embedded in her backside, and you just go, oh my God, the thought of it is just.
Some of my customers, I never, like I said, I never meant to grow this into a business. It just happened, okay? Reluctantly almost. They've had ticks themselves, and for one customer I actually made a necklace. And she was so dedicated to that, she wore it to bed, which can't be that comfortable with the beads. But for quite a few customers, I've started making bracelets with EM beads. And they are saying that it's definitely helping them. And I don't like to advertise them, because you're thinking, well, there are only 6 beads on a bracelet. How can that work for a human being that much bigger than a dog? But it does seem to work. I've made the odd anklets, especially for men. Nice. For men who work their dogs outdoors.
Sorry, I was thinking they would look lovely with a pair of shorts and a sandal.
No. For the men, I only use very manly colours, right? It's their choice, obviously, but it's normally black or like a hunting green or something.
Okay.
But the strangest thing, and again, I won't advertise it because it's only anecdotal, but one of my friends, she said, it reduced the arthritis in her hand.
That is interesting.
That's amazing, isn't it?
I'm going to hold it up again, because they do look. Me and Ross McCarthy were talking yesterday.
Okay, well, that's the gentleman who
I wasn't going to
in the dishwasher.
I wasn't going to embarrass him by saying.
No, it's fine. He wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it was Ross. It was a washing machine. I think he put it in. But he was saying that they look like friendship bracelets, and friendship bracelets for dogs. And so I can imagine having them as a bracelet like that. But
indeed,
I mean, even. You know, I know that sounds, even if they weren't as effective as they are, and they're really, I find them very, very effective.
But they are nice looking as well.
I was going to say, they just look so gorgeous on the dogs. And I've just got from Active Canine Designs, from Corinna, she's just brought out a new slip lead called the Celtic Knot slip lead, which is beautiful, and it's got a Celtic knot which you hold instead of having a handle. They're absolutely stunning. But I got them in my business colours, which is purple and green, and they are beautiful. And I thought, I need to replace my dog's blue camel collars with some colours that match my leads now. So I'll be placing another order with you, because they are fantastic. Oh my goodness, Tanja, I could talk to you all day. It's been such a joy. Is there anything else you want to say about your collars before we wrap up?
No, not really. I'm just really grateful to my customers, because when I first started this, I was quite skeptical when I first made them for my own dogs. And when I saw the results and other people put their trust in me, I really started very tentatively saying, now, listen, for some it works really well, for some it doesn't work quite so well. And then I started getting all this amazing feedback, and no, they're definitely not 100% guaranteed. And I do say to people, and I think this is really important when they contact me, the war against ticks takes more than one weapon. I see it a bit like an arsenal of weapons. And like I said, I always say to them, please look into a pinch of garlic, apple cider vinegar. I give turmeric paste to my dogs as well. etc. Because for some people, the collar alone works perfectly okay. With others, they need more help because of where they live and how active the tick population is. It does seem like our tick problem is increasing year on year, and I do find that quite worrying. We seem to have more ticks than we used to.
Yes, and I was going to start a controversial subject, but I think I'll just not.
Okay.
Bringing dogs in from abroad and bringing different
yes.
And
I would also say the healthier you keep your dog, and in my case with natural means, the better they can ward off ticks. So quite often if a tick does land on your dog and your dog is an example of health, quite likely the tick will leave. It does seem to like the weaker energies from what I can gather, but I'm not a scientist.
No, I mean, it's like with everything, isn't it? You should attack your health. That sounded really wrong because we don't attack our health. We want to boost our health in lots of different ways. So make sure we've got good nutrition, make sure we have good sleep.
Yes.
So we rest and take good care of mental health, and it's all of those different things that come together to look after us. And it's the same when you're looking at parasite prevention. You make sure your dog's on a good clean diet, keep its gut healthy, and
yes,
and so you're coming at it from lots of different angles to make sure your dog's at its optimum health.
Yeah.
In the same way we do with parasite control as well. So the collars, fantastic from the outside in, but then when you also need a little something from the inside out as well.
Indeed. Yeah, I often get people contact me saying, I've got 4 dogs and 3 never pick up ticks, but the oldest one picks up, is like a real magnet. And I think it could be because he or she is older and it has a weaker energy. So quite often, if they don't want to buy one for older dogs, they will buy one for the weaker dog. And that seems to work as well. So, like I said, I'm just really grateful the trust people put into me. And I hope to be able to do this for quite some time to come. I like to keep the price down as much as possible because I want it to, I'm by no means a charity, but I do want it to be accessible for as many people as possible that want to try it. And let's face it, if a collar lasts you a year and it's £15, that's a heck of a lot cheaper and safer than buying chemical products.
Well, it's what, just over £1 a month?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Just over £1. So when you look at it like that, you think, well, we're in lockdown at the minute, but if you go for one coffee a month, then that's £3 a month just for coffee.
That's right. Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, they're incredibly good value for money.
They are.
So where can I get one from? Where can I get them? Where you can get them from?
I've got to tell you, my husband and a friend are working on making a website for me. I'm not the most technical minded. That website will be for information only, so it's not finished yet, because if I were to allow people to order via the website, I lose that personal contact, and I really do like that personal contact. So if people find me on Facebook under Bug Off Natural Dog Collars and they message me, then I will come back to them as soon as possible, and we normally then move to my personal message thread, which is Tanja Wakelin, because it's much easier for me to share the information, the photos, etc., via my personal message. I don't find the business messenger that easy to use, and copying messages and photos, etc. And we take it from there. And depending on how big my order list is, it could be anything. If I have the color in stock, from a week. At the moment, I am having some trouble getting the quote in quickly. So it could be a couple of weeks. I even, at the moment, and that does complicate things with the virus and all, I've suddenly acquired a lot of customers in Luxembourg, but of course international postage is harder and dearer. I do have to add on, but all my prices do include UK postage anyway.
Oh, really? So what? So remember, £15 including postage?
£15 including postage, or if they wanted the black one, because I buy the black quote in much larger quantities, is £12.50 including postage.
You know, that's not enough. So I think that is, so it's literally £1 a month plus postage.
Yeah. But like I said, I mean, I'm by no means a charity, and I have a small profit margin. But for me, it's also important that anybody who would like to try that can afford to try it.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, I'm the same. I sell my books and DVDs very, very reasonably, because I would much rather have more people have access to them than a few.
A few privileged. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd much rather help more dogs and more people than narrow it. And I know business coaches have said to me,
sorry, I haven't taken part in the gun dog challenge. I'm too busy making collars.
It's fine. We've been we gave up a week and it's just gone a bit mad.
I've really enjoyed watching the videos anyway. The
judges put together, you know, I'm going to give them a shout out actually. Christine Collins from Town and Country did the retriever. Hannah Spearman from Rebel Ritzy did HPR. Neil Smith from Nuts About Mutts did the Spaniel, and Richard Ree from Home and Field did the puppy, and I did the pet one. And the challenges put down were absolutely brilliant. For me, I think sometimes the challenges can go too far and they can bring behaviour issues in depending on them, or people are having to train, whereas all of them are based around walking on a loose lead, good manners, heel work,
nice
bed, you know, get your dog on the bed. And so there were all kinds of things that would benefit people generally living with a dog. So yeah, it was a great challenge, and the winners, by the time this goes out, the winners will know who they are, because the winners go out tomorrow.
I'll be watching. I won't be partaking. Like I said, I am so busy making collars. This is my busiest time of year, obviously, with the weather getting warmer.
Yeah. And thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me.
Not at all. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, so thank you so much, Tanja. And stay on. I'm going to talk to you about ordering a collar. So stay where you are. I'm going to finish the recording now, but it's been an absolute joy.
Same here. I really enjoyed it, and I was slightly nervous, but it was lovely.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And take it steady, and I look forward to seeing all the new colours coming out.
Excellent.
Take care, Tanja. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.